Hello world, hello teachers. I am Amanda from amandarightnow.com, and I come on my Facebook page every Tuesday. I also post these videos on my YouTube channel, and I talk about things related to teaching English, and mostly for upper grade teachers, 5th through even 12th grade. I teach 8th grade English in the Bay Area. I've also taught 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, and I also teach drama, which includes 7th graders. So you could say I've taught all grades from 3rd to 8th, which is kind of crazy to think about. And I just learned about this new way to facilitate discussions in my classroom, and I want to share what I learned with you. And I just this week wrapped up this discussion method with my students. So we did it over the course of 2 days. About a book called The 57 Bus, which I highly recommend teachers read. It's nonfiction, which a lot of our students don't pick up nonfiction books on their own. But you know, you should definitely do some research and read it because there's a lot of language in the 57 Bus, but it was written for a young adult audience. So, and it's actually about something that happened in Oakland in 2015, and just so many important lessons to be learned from this book and this event. So definitely check out the 57 Bus. Just Google it, look for it on Amazon, or Goodreads. So what is this discussion method that I'm about to talk about? I never heard of it until actually like 2 weeks ago during a collaboration meeting. One of the teachers on my team said that she was going to do this thing called World Cafe. And I was like, what? What's World Cafe? Tell me about this. I've never heard of this before. And it's pretty cool. I don't know if I did it exactly the way that it's prescribed. I think I kind of took my own twist. But basically, let me just tell you a short definition of it. And it is kind of cafe style. I let my students eat during this discussion, and it didn't get in the way. I think it made them really excited to discuss, and it made it more relaxed that they were able to eat, and it was just like a much more relaxed atmosphere. And I feel like, you know, with like Socratic Seminar, it's so formal and kind of uptight. And so if you're looking to get your students maybe being a little bit more honest and just more relaxed, having a more relaxed discussion, which I feel like promotes more meaningful discussion, then you should try this. So let me just tell you a little summary. So this is actually from Wikipedia. So a World Cafe is a structured conversational process for knowledge sharing in which groups of people discuss a topic at several tables, with individuals switching tables periodically and getting introduced to the previous discussion that happened at that same table by a table host. And I actually ended up calling that table host the scribe, and they actually had to kind of take notes, and I modeled this for my students. And but they could also participate in the discussion. So I'm going to show you a picture of my screen right now and show you what my classroom, how I set it up. And so let me just show you my screen real quick. So this is a picture. Hopefully you can see my screen of what I did in my classroom. So you can see I had, how many tables of 6? I had 6 tables of 6. And so each table had a sign on it. And the sign had big ideas, and these big ideas were related to the book. The students had all finished the book, and so one of the tables, this is table 1, the big ideas from the 57 Bus that they were going to discuss was friendship, peer pressure, and the teen brain. So, and then the sheets that you see on their desk, I'm going to actually show you what those sheets have on them in a minute. But each student had these sheets. And then see here, this yellow tape on this desk, that's the VIP scribe. And they have this notebook paper and it says round 1. Let me show you a more close-up video picture of the scribes table. So table number 1, round number 1, this is 6th period. I took a picture of, and then so each round the scribe would write round 1, round 2, and the scribe only has to stay at the table for 2 rounds, and then they can move again, and a new scribe can go there, which is really cool. So the scribe had to basically tell the group that rotates there, I don't know if I'm describing this very well. So for round 1, let me back up a little bit. Let me talk about round 1 first. So in round 1, students, let's see. Hopefully you can see me. So students had page numbers. So you can see, maybe this is backwards. So the pages, each desk has one of these sheets on it. And I put a sheet protector because I used it for every period. So page numbers related to these big ideas. And actually I had students, before we did this discussion, this World Cafe activity, I had students, I poached students' answers. So I had students do this activity where they had to list big ideas from the book and page numbers related to those big ideas and questions related to those page numbers. So the students did the work for this. I used their questions, their big ideas, and their page numbers. So I just had them do this activity in Google Classroom, and then I stole their ideas. I reworded some of their questions. But anyway, so it says Cafe Table 1, and then the page numbers related to those big ideas: friendship, peer pressure, and the teen brain. And then there's direct questions related to the big ideas and overarching questions. So the direct questions are very specific to what happened in the book, whereas the overarching questions are more like, should you stop being friends with somebody because they're a bad influence? Because now he's a man, but one of the people in the book, his name is Richard, well, I don't want to go too much into detail about what the 57 bus is about, but basically he's on a bus and he's with his friends and he is pressured to do something pretty serious to someone else on the bus named Sasha. And so that's one of the overarching ideas, is peer pressure and like what's going on in a teen's brain when they decide to do something that could result in really serious consequences. And so there's 5 direct questions specifically about the people in the book and just the events in the book. So one of the direct questions is, in what ways is Richard a follower? In what ways is Richard a leader? And so that's more of a direct question related to what happened in the book, whereas the overarching questions are getting kids to think more beyond the book. And so basically, when students arrive at the table, there always has to be a scribe VIP person. When they arrive at the table, I started a timer for 2 minutes. They had 2 minutes to kind of review the pages, review the questions. And next year when I do this, or if I do this later in the year, I'm going to give the students the questions in advance so they can review them and review the page numbers and the big ideas and just kind of prepare themselves to talk about these things. But 2 minutes of silence where they just review the questions. And then I set the timer, and all the students could see the timer. I said, okay, now you have 7 minutes. And I didn't want them arguing over what question to talk about because that would just waste time. So I said, the person to the right of the scribe, or the VIP person, the host of the discussion, you get to choose the question that your group starts with. And so that person will just say, let's talk about, and I numbered all the questions. I really want to talk about number 6. Should you stop being friends with somebody because they're a bad influence? And then, students are like eating in the morning, kids brought donuts, and then during sixth period in the afternoon, they were eating chips. And so they're just like sitting there eating their food and listening to each other. And the scribes, like just doing little bullet points and key ideas. And what's really neat is I have just all of everything that the scribe wrote that the group talked about. And so then after the 7 minutes, I said, okay, find a new table. So they just got up. The scribe had to stay for round 2 at their table, but everyone else at the table gets up and goes and finds a different table. And so the other tables, big ideas for the 57 bus were the power of words. So this was table 6. Table 5 was society, environment, school, neighborhoods, poverty, and institutions. Table 2 was social media and the news. Table 4 was forgiveness, punishment, justice, fairness, and the law enforcement. And then table 3 was stereotypes, discrimination, race, gender, Asperger's, and autism. And yes, the 57 bus covers all of these things. It's crazy. It's such a good book. And so students, pick tables based on what they wanted to talk about. And I did tell them to split up from their friends because, they tend to like go with their friends to different tables. And so when they have a choice, they're going to stick with their buddies. So I asked them for round 2 to separate and go to different tables so that it kind of mixes up the discussion. And so then for 2 minutes, it's silent when they're reading through their tables, questions, and page numbers and reviewing everything. And the scribe is just reviewing their notes, adding anything they need that they forgot to add. And then when the 7 minutes starts, the scribe summarizes what the last group talked about. And the new group gets to continue that conversation and gets to maybe disagree with someone or that was at that table previously, or point that someone was at that table previously. And one thing that I noticed, and what's really cool, and maybe you're wondering like, well, how do you grade this? I just graded on students participating, and I said participation looks like you listening, looking at the person who's talking, and looks like you speaking about these topics and about this book. And it looks like you opening your book to the pages and looking at your book and rereading parts that pertain to these big ideas. And so if students did all 3 of those things, they got an A+. And if they were off task, I would just tell them like, you're off task, I'm taking a point, right? Like just really simple way to grade, and you just grade in the moment, which is awesome. But I have this rolly chair, and I kind of rolled around, and sometimes I would ask follow-up questions because I feel like a lot of students, like their discussions could be so much deeper if they asked each other follow-up questions. And so that's something that I want to develop some lessons for students to begin to learn that skill of asking each other follow-up questions to dig deeper, because I had the scribes, they wrote the question numbers that their group talked about, and they jump around. And I tried to tell everyone the second day that we did this, it's better if you stick to one question the whole time, because then you're digging a little deeper rather than jumping from one question to the next. The goal is not to answer all the questions. The goal is to have a meaningful conversation about these, like 1 or 2 questions. And so they had 6 rounds. So eventually everyone would go to every table. And so that's World Cafe. Pretty fun way to facilitate discussions about short stories, about books. So I hope you found this helpful. If you did, I'd love to hear from you in the comments, and feel free to share this video with colleagues at your school or other teachers on Facebook, or through an email. You can always email a link to a colleague. Okay, bye everyone. Thank you for joining me. I think next week is Christmas Eve. Is Tuesday Christmas Eve next week? Let me just look real quick. Yes, Tuesday is Christmas Eve. I don't know if I'm going to be here next week. I might take it off. So if I'm not here, you know why. I'm giving you giving you a warning since it's Christmas Eve. I might come on. I don't know. We'll see. But I am going to have my 5-year-old and husband here, and so that's always hard doing Facebook Lives when you have a 5-year-old running around. Okay, thank you for watching, and if I don't see you next Tuesday, the following Tuesday I will be back. Bye, everyone.